The first slam dunk is the directorial debut of renowned mangaka Takehiko Inoue, adapting his very own debut manga, Slam Dunk. It's debuception. Based on the title, you might think this movie is adapting, like, the first big game the main team has, or maybe just the entire first arc. Something near the beginning of the story, you know? It's supposed to be the first slam dunk, after all. Well, joke's on you, it's adapting a game from the final arc of the manga. In fact, it's adapting the very last game of the series as a whole. So where is that title coming from? In fact, the intention behind the title comes from Takehiko Inoue's own desire for this movie to be a first of sorts for both old fans and newcomers alike. For old fans, there's an entirely new perspective that the game is being shown through, that is, point guard Miyagi Ryota. This renders the film into a first-time kind of experience, and the emotional arc of Ryota that is explored as a result of this change in POV is new as well, though arguably already somewhat explored in Inoue's own one-shot Piercing, but that's neither here nor there. For new fans, the world of Slam Dunk is showcased in its entirety in a succinct and rapid-fire manner, and presented with the intention as coming off as if it were a standalone story. But for something like this to work, and to fit it into just a single movie rather than, say, a full TV series, efficiency is key to getting everything across as best as possible. So how does the first Slam Dunk fare in that regard? Is its breakneck pacing digestible, fun, and emotionally resonant, or is 2 hours just not long enough? Okay, well, I'll just say it right away. I love this movie, and I think it did a good job of these things, and now I'm gonna talk about why I think so. So, let's just fucking go, man. So, the first Slam Dunk's material stakes are based on whether or not the main characters, the Shohoku High basketball team, can win a single game at the Inter-High School National Championship. Facing off against Sano, a team considered to be the strongest in Japan, sets the stakes even higher. But unlike many other sports movies, there's no quote-unquote build-up to this particular game. There's no other games that get played out as part of the story, even though there were, of course, many games throughout the story of the original Slam Dunk. The most important game for the story that the first Slam Dunk is telling is also the only one. It just starts. By placing the material stakes of the movie in the hands of just a single game, the focus on the plays of the sport with the ball and the baskets, which I'm pretty sure are all important parts of playing the sport known as basketball, is more specific and exacting. Every technique and strategy is only relevant to how they apply to this one game. No context is built up via training or recruiting or the other games that lead up to this big final one, and therefore none of that context is needed for the story itself. By foregoing focus on these parts of the story, there's also no need to rehash things old fans would already be familiar with, and there's also no need for what might feel like a crowd of 300 plus chapters worth of context to interrupt the core of what the first Slam Dunk is for new viewers. And I know, some of that stuff is covered in flashbacks, but you know what I mean, you're smart, and I'll get more into flashbacks in a bit. So, with the game focus established, the first Slam Dunk can be relatively cleanly divided into two major concurrent and interconnected plots. Ryota's emotional arc as the primary main character, and the path towards the outcome of the Shohoku vs Sano match. There's nothing else the story needs to quote-unquote worry about portraying, so it can remain focused and efficient. Additionally, and this is more typical of these kinds of sports shown in any manga stories, but it's still applicable, the narration throughout the game from all members of the sport ball being played is especially effective in allowing for this efficiency to come through. When a character can just straight up think about what the audience needs to know about what they're currently doing, the movie itself doesn't need to worry about extending the exposition or making the exposition come about naturally or any of that. It can just be the thoughts telepathically beamed directly into the audience's minds, and it works. There's a reason it's such a common storytelling tool in these kinds of narratives. But that's not to say the movie is lacking at all in visual storytelling, because there's plenty of moments where the visuals carry the movement of the game and the plays being played, or so I've heard it being called in High School Musical, which, again, goes back to how effectively told the first Slam Dunk is as a whole. We see subtle hints of characters getting distracted, we see showcases of solidarity that are purely physical in presence, we follow the ball cleanly and fluidly during fast-paced moments of play. Essentially, the visual storytelling, the dialogue, and the internal monologues all come together to depict a fictionalized basketball game with a combination of clarity for those less familiar with the overall sport and excitement for those who are looking for the excitement. This is just one specific example out of many, but it really stood out to me because some friends I was watching it with got really hyped about it. But basically, there's a moment when Mitsui and Ryota notice the placement of Akagi's feet, which prompts a zoom in that shows the audience what they see, and the actions following immediately after also showcase why this physicality was important. And it's just good. It's good visual storytelling that highlights the ways in which the sport works, and this particular moment is also a direct lead into Akagi's own internal turmoil regarding his specific opponent. Ryota, in particular, gets a lot of moments that highlight the things that he notices, which makes sense, because he's the main character. And speaking of that, Ryota was already one of the main characters of the original manga that was slam dunked, but he wasn't the main character, you know? He was one of the members the team relied on, and he was a starter, but compared to the likes of red-haired actual main protagonist Sakuragi, or hell, even to the rest of the starters, Rukawa, Mitsui, and Akagi, it wouldn't be unfair to say he was far from the focus fairly often. By placing him in the starring role, the first slam dunk effectively and immediately offers something novel for old fans, and something easy to jump into for new fans. Instead of the context of the entire rest of the manga being vital to one's understanding of the story presented in the first slam dunk, viewers just need what is presented within the film itself to get a grasp on the emotional stakes of the story. That is, the struggles Ryota faces in the shadow of his deceased older brother, and how that affects his relationship with his mother and with basketball. What else works is how Ryota's role and presence in the team works to showcase and introduce the other main characters efficiently and effectively. By creating new scenes with Ryota as the focal point, the emotional arc we witness from him remains consistent, while the audience is simultaneously given the chance to better understand the main character's teammates and their own internal struggles and what basketball means to them. Ryota as protagonist can be on occasion a bit distracting, if only because certain events in the final game are very clearly indicative of Sakuragi having been the main character in the original manga, but this is alleviated somewhat by an additional emphasis on Sakuragi's relationship with Ryota in particular. With just a few lines sprinkled in here and there, Sakuragi can easily pass the baton, or ball of a story focus, back to Ryota. Basically, Ryota as the main character allows for his core emotional arc to be the focus of the movie, and therefore the only context needed to get invested on that front. And again, this is a new story for old viewers to experience, and as an emotional arc only requires the context provided within the film itself for new viewers as well, making it an easy to digest arc without background context from the original manga. But, of course, a basketball team is not just one man, and the other starting members get their own time to shine, especially through the use of the use of flashbacks creates a unique pace, if a bit of a predictable one. You know if a character gets a flashback, they're about to do some nutso shit on the court. It's like a flashback power-up. Still, their primary purpose in allowing for the entire movie to be about just one game by only flashing back to the most relevant moments as they become pertinent allows for the storytelling to be, as the title of this video and also everything else about this video would suggest, incredibly efficient. As elaborated upon like 2 seconds ago, I don't know, Ryota is the main character. The majority of the emotional arc stems from his journey. The flashbacks sprinkled throughout, for the most part, have some sort of connection back to him and how he progresses throughout his life up to the point of the ongoing game that the movie simultaneously explores. But when we delve into other characters and their motivations, Ryota is often brought into the fold as well, allowing for this emotional arc of his to seamlessly progress while also diving into the interiority of the other team members. This isn't always the case. Sometimes the other characters are purely given their own time to breathe and develop, independent of Ryota's journey. But for the most part, the efficiency of storytelling comes from how Ryota and the other characters' explorations coincide. For example, Akagi struggles with always being the one to chase the dream of being a part of a team that makes it to being champions, significantly more so than his peers, resulting in a feeling of alienation and isolation, is portrayed through flashbacks that involve Ryota and explore his own ambition and passion for the sport. Akagi takes Ryota's seemingly lax attitude as if he's not a team player, indicating Akagi's proclivity towards sportsmanship and his passion for achieving his dream, while Ryota's response indicates his own thoughtfulness and drive, as well as his standoffish attitude and the basis of their dynamic. And this is a dynamic that shifts and changes for the better, as seen in another Akagi-flavored flashback, a flashback that also connects to Mitsui. Speaking of, Mitsui is another notable example as we follow his path through basketball and how he had strayed. Instead of seeing him as a junior high champ and how he was once a charismatic, friendly, and passionate soul, like how audiences would have been shown in the original story, we see Mitsui even younger than that through the eyes of Ryota. When Mitsui encounters a young Ryota and displays his cheery and basketball love and attitude, Ryota's own traumas and resulting behavior is portrayed in turn, being unable to face an older figure supporting him through the sport without being reminded of his brother. We also witness Mitsui's descent towards bitterness and cynicism before his triumphant return to the sport, once again through the eyes and experiences of Ryota. The rooftop fight, which was once kind of more of a throwaway scene in the original in all honesty, is now given significantly more weight as both of these characters' low points are shown in full force. Again, it's all very explicitly interconnected. Many of these flashbacks are informing the audience of more than one aspect of more than one character, highlighting how efficiently these flashbacks are employed. Even the rival team of Sano is given this chance for interiority, and it's done so well with just a single flashback scene. We see a showcase of their ace's athleticism, as well as his passion for the sport, as well as an overall humanization of the rival team. They're not evil, they're also just kids that love basketball, you know? This is fully emphasized in particular at the very end, when their ace breaks down in tears after losing, with a callback to the aforementioned flashback. Maybe you should have prayed for something else, dude. I don't know, man, it's just good stuff. Every moment serves to either further the path towards the final outcome of the game, or does multiple things for the storytelling itself, especially the flashback scenes. Oh my god, how many times have I said flashback so far? Jesus. Sakuragi is really the only protagonist where this whole Ryota, other guy, character arc, flashback collision thing doesn't really exist. Even Rukawa has that one flashback portraying his and Ryota's shared determination and ambition, while ending in a joke about how little they've actually interacted. The lack of a Sakuragi and Ryota flashback moment is made up for by Sakuragi's spotlight stealing throughout the main game and his own personal flashback journey near the end of the movie. Not to mention, the relevant bits of Sakuragi's character and the context needed to understand his actions are very well explained by the... drumroll. I can't play the drums. This part's great. I really like the first few in-universe minutes of the game because I think they do such a good job at establishing each of the main characters as well as their quote-unquote deal. You know, their thing, their sitch, their niche, their niche. I don't know how it's pronounced. I'm pretty sure it's niche. Ryota's fast and always thinking about what other members of his team are up to on the court, characteristic of an effective point guard. I mean, probably. My knowledge of what a good point guard is based off of me reading Real, so go read Real, I don't know. Please read Real. I don't know anybody else who reads Real. Rukawa is shown to be notably prodigious in his skill for the sport, with the opposing team's coach highlighting just how impressive some of his movements are, almost on par with the #1 high school player in Japan. He's also pretty stoic and standoffish, that much is established as well. Akagi is the big guy, the captain, the one the bench members really root for when he nets that slam dunk. You might even call it the first slam dunk. Mitsui is the three-pointer guy. A bit cocky, pretty confident. The whole, okay, I'm in top form thing. Okay, dude, alright. Whatever you say, man. But he's got the skills to back it up. His lacking stamina from his time away from the sport is also alluded to, which is a trait that becomes relevant in the latter half of the game. And good old Sakuragi. Right off the bat, he's clearly got impressive physicality and athleticism, but with plenty of goofball moments and a single exchange from the fictional audience members watching, the real-life audiences watching can immediately get the impression that he's new, and maybe just a bit prone to messing up. All of these moments just make for a really great character intro to me. It's fast-paced and breakneck and exhilarating and exciting and some other descriptor and just so effective at quickly mapping out the major traits of the main teams from both Shohoku and Sano. It's the start of the game. Things have yet to really ramp up, so the movie as a whole is justified in switching gears relatively quickly, jumping around to get each main character established for the audience before the game gets in its groove. It's all very snappy. It doesn't ever linger too much on anything, and every moment is given just the right amount of spotlight. Even stuff like the hyper-coordinated cheering for Sano immediately places our main characters firmly in the underdog spot. And in a similar vein to the first few in-universe minutes of the game, the last few seconds are fucking mind-blowing. The visuals and use of audio are crazy effective here, highlighting every single movement and the feeling of time slowing down in the face of this single point difference. I guess you'd say this part is more just good storytelling rather than specifically efficient, but the way this final scene feels so breakneck and edge of your seat with the power of insane directing, the buildup of emotional stakes throughout the movie, and a bit of muted audio just couldn't go unmentioned, you know? I think the choice of only bringing the audio back after the two star members of the final play, Rukawa and Sakuragi, acknowledge their teamwork, rather than when the buzzer sounds, is just such a brilliant one. The teamwork was the winner, not the buzzer beating. Or something. I don't know. I own a theater-sized poster for this movie that I got from showing up early to a fan screening, so... that on its own is probably enough to indicate how much I like this movie. I'm not great at self-reflection. What was intended to be a closer look at the first Slam Dunk storytelling probably ended up more as me just singing its praises by way of letting my biases seep through, but... Well, as always, I never claimed to be particularly good at this sort of thing. I'm just trying to have fun, and I hope you are too. Really though, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good one. Take care.